6, Y News with Angelo Castro III, William Theo, and Darlene Basingan.
Good evening. Various anti-Duterte groups welcomed the second State of the Nation address of President Rodrigo Duterte with a massive protest, including a burning of the chief executive's effigy. Ray Pelayo tells us why. We'll be back later. Meanwhile, President Rodrigo Duterte supporters held their own protests simultaneous with a demonstration held by anti-government groups. Maki Libradilla will tell us why.
Organizers claim 5,000 individuals voluntarily joined in the pro-Duterte rally led by the Kilusang Pagbabago and other groups composed of jeepney drivers, Integrated Barangay Communications Group Incorporated, and representatives from various parts of the country as well as some celebrities. They claimed to have voluntarily joined and were not paid to participate in the rally.
Ito aming pagsusuporta, nakikita namin dahil maganda ang pamamalakad sa ngayon ng ating Pangulong si Rodrigo Roa Duterte para sa pagbabago.
The group of jeepney drivers like Miguelito Salgado says they even stopped their operations today so they could express their gratitude to the president. The jeepney drivers also said they have long been seeking to improve their services and increase their daily income. Further noting that the administration's jeepney modernization program would help them do so.
Ngayon pa lang nangyari na yung transport modernization ni Pangulong Duterte ay nagkakaroon ng boses yung mga transport cooperative.
They now call on critics to just support the administration in its fight against illegal drugs and corruption instead of continuously opposing government programs. Maki Libradilla, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
President Rodrigo Duterte has stressed in his second State of the Nation address the need to pass a measure that will reinstate death penalty in the country. Joyce Balancho is at the Batasan Pambansa complex to tell us why live. Go ahead, Joyce.
Yes, good evening, Diego. President Rodrigo Duterte stressed in the early part of his second State of the Nation address today that the war on drugs is far from over and that the government will continue to fight relentlessly those who are still involved in illegal drug trade. The president reiterated that proliferation of illegal drugs in the country has been the root cause of evil and suffering. This prompted him to underscore the need to finally enact into law the imposition of death penalty in the country, especially for drug-related cases. The House of Representatives passed the said measure in third and final reading, but the Senate of the Philippines declined to push it forward following the issues of conflict with our international agreements. Aside from death penalty, the president also directed Congress to pass the tax reform package. He recognized the House of Representatives for passing this on third and final reading, given that this is one of his priority legislation. He went on by saying that the ball is now on the hands of the Senate as it has started the deliberations on tax reform. Once passed into law, the president guaranteed that the benefits will be felt by the public, especially the poor. Senator Grace Poe, however, disagrees to passing the tax reform bill. Let's hear it from the latest senator.
Kung tataasan mo ang taxes sa krudo, lahat apektado. Hindi lamang yung mga sumasakay ng sasakyan, pati yung delivery, pati yung mga produkto natin na inaangkat, lahat yan apektado. Lahat tayo ay maapektuhan yan. So, hindi basta-basta yan. Pagdating kunyari sa pagtatax ng mga ibang pagkain, sugary drinks, di ba? Siyempre isipin mo muna, ito ba'y talaga makakabuti?
Diego, to also ensure the efficiency of tax collection, the president also said in his SONA, he directed the Department of Finance as well as the Bureau of Internal Revenue to strengthen or intensify their efforts against tax evaders. Diego?
Thank you, Joyce Balancho, reporting live from Batasan Pambansa Complex. Before the State of the Nation Address, or SONA, of President Rodrigo Duterte, the 17th Congress formally opened today its second regular session. In his opening speech, House Speaker Alvarez recommends that lawmakers should focus on two important legislations. Joyce Balancho will tell us why.
The 17th Congress vows to prioritize the passage of the Bangsamoro Basic Law and Charter change.
We have to concentrate our efforts in passing two legislative measures that hold the key to lasting peace and prosperity for our country. First, the Bangsamoro Basic Law draft has been submitted to the President and will soon be on its way into our chambers. This will be the basis for creating a homeland for our Bangsamoro brothers and sisters.
House Speaker Pantaleon Alvarez also wants Congress to focus on the proposed dissolution of marriage that Congressman Pia Cayetano intends to file. Congressman Alvarez and Cayetano believe that the proposed legislation would help resolve the issue on couples who would want to legally separate.
Unfortunately, the present system practically coerces married persons to remain with each other even if the relationship is beyond repair and has caused continues to cause harm to the well-being of the husband, the wife, and worse, the children involved. We have to change this.
Alvarez also vows to push for a law that will provide protection to civil unions or individuals in live-in settlements. Furthermore, the House Speaker notes that the need for the creation of a law that will integrate the Land Transportation Office, or the LTO, and the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, or LTFRB, into a single land transportation authority that will solely regulate public transportation. He is also pushing for the passage of a bill that will require operations of casinos, public transportations, and mining companies to apply for a legislative franchise before they will be allowed to operate. Meanwhile, Congressman Alvarez also pointed one by one the achievements of the lower chamber of Congress during its first regular session, including the approval of the death penalty bill and the tax reform package in the third and final reading. Both the upper and lower houses of Congress passed today 6 bills which are now awaiting the President's signature. The opening session also highlighted the oath-taking of the Coalition of Association of Senior Citizens members Francisco Datol Jr. and Milagros Aquino Magsaysay as the new members of the House of Representatives. Joyce Balancho, UNTV News and Rescue, House of Representatives.
Meanwhile, tax reform package, strengthening of the anti-terrorism law, national ID system, universal health care bill, and the government's shift to federalism are among the priorities of the Senate in resumption of the session. Nel Maribuhok will tell us why.
Senate President Aquilino Coco Pimentel has laid down the Senate's priority bills in the opening of the second regular session of the 17th Congress today.
In this session, we will again address issues of national importance. We will ease the burden of working and middle-class Filipinos while ensuring that all government programs remain funded through the Tax Reform for Acceleration and Inclusion Act, or TRAIN. We will ensure the safety of our people by strengthening the anti-terrorism law.
Some administration-allied senators, meanwhile, say they understand why the proposed reinstatement of death penalty is not included in the Senate's priority.
Aside from death penalty, marami kasing priority rin na mga bills na kailangan nating fokusan dahil yung mga priority bills ay nakakatulong sa ekonomiya ng bansa.
On the other hand, the Senate minority bloc vows to never stop scrutinizing and monitoring some of the controversial proposed bills of the administration.
You cannot do federalism without the charter change. So we will scrutinize closely.
Kailangan pa namin pag-aralan yung tax reform program. Baka dahil isang comprehensive bill siya, baka magiging mahirap na suportahan lahat.
Senate President Coco Pimentel hopes that more pending priority bills would be passed by the 17th Congress in its second regular session. 20 senators attended the formal opening of the second session of 17th Congress earlier this morning. The said session was also attended by some members of the President's Cabinet and Diplomatic Corps. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
President Duterte personally talked to anti-admin protesters outside Batasan Pambansa immediately after his SONA. Grace Casin will tell us why.
President Rodrigo Duterte personally addressed thousands of protesters outside the Batasan Pambansa complex after his second State of the Nation address. The president clarified to them why there is a need to extend martial law in Mindanao and as well as his decision to stop the peace talks. However, while the chief executive was speaking, the protesters continued shouting as they asked for the president to hear out their concerns. After a few minutes, President left the area and protesters went on with their demonstration.
Wala na ang Marcelo ulit. Po, mag-usap tayo ulit.
Yes, sir.
Di sabihin mo sa kanila, mag-usap tayo ulit. Okay lang. Yung Marcelo, may tatapusin lang ako para sa lahat. Hindi yan forever. Maghintay lang kayo. Iilan na lang ang nandyan na may kasalanan.
This morning, anti-admin protesters marched with gigantic placards and burned effigies along Commonwealth Avenue towards the Batasan Pambansa Road. They were from various labor, farmers, and driver groups, among others. They expressed dismay over what they claim as broken promises of the president, such as ending contractualization and failure to implement land reform. Despite the rain, the groups have stayed and continue their protests outside the Batasan Pambansa complex. Grace Casin, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
President Rodrigo Duterte said that the Philippines will continue having dialogues with China on issues concerning the West Philippine Sea. Nel Maribuhok is at the Batasang Pambansa complex to tell us why live. Yes, Nel, go ahead.
William, President Rodrigo Duterte, as part of his speech in his second State of the Nation address, reiterated his foreign policy. Particularly, the president stated that the Philippines will continue its dialogue with China to ease the tension in the West Philippine Sea. The president did not tackle particularly the issue on arbitral ruling and how his administration will use the ruling to address the maritime dispute issue in the region. The president said that his administration will continue to engage with other countries, particularly with members of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, and strengthening ties without interference in the country's governance. President Duterte also said that the ASEAN chairmanship of the Philippines is a chance to pursue its national interest in the international community. Some of the senators, particularly from the minority bloc, are divided on the president's policy and reforms stated during the SONA.
Ibang bagay na nabanggit niya, gaya ng dagdag na tulong sa ating AFP, pagtutok sa government efficiency, pagpasa ng National Land Use Act, bagong mga patakaran sa mining. In fairness, natuwa naman po kami sa minorya na nabanggit yung mga bagay na ito.
So parang all sound and fury signifying nothing, wala pong malinaw na strategic directions ng pamamahala ang nailatag ni Presidente.
The president, however, did not give much emphasis and details on country's foreign policies and the issue on the West Philippine Sea, but he assures that he will tackle the issue on the West Philippine Sea soon. And that is our update. Back to you, William.
Thank you very much, Nel Maribuhok, reporting live from the Batasang Pambansa complex.
Different militant groups across the country voiced their appeal against the Duterte administration. Joe Anano tells us why.
Hundreds of farmers and lumads or natives in Mindanao hold a protest action at the Freedom Park in Davao City in the hope of having their appeals will reach President Rodrigo Duterte. First in their appeals is for the lifting of martial law in Mindanao and for the stoppage of the militarization in their communities. The group also presented a replica of caskets with the inscription crying for justice for victims of political killings in southern Mindanao. Around 300 members of the community of Yolanda survivors and partners or SIP stormed to the National Housing Authority in Sagkahan, Tacloban City. The group complains of the housing allegedly constructed of substandard quality by the NHA. The NHA, however, says it allows the housing standard layout set by the government and that changes only happen after the project is turned over to the developers and contractors. Militant groups in Cebu hold a People's Sauna during the second State of the Nation address by President Duterte. The participating groups include workers alsa kontraktual, BPO workers, Piston, Panaghugpong, Kadamay, Gabriela, Anakbayan, and others. In the middle of the People's Sauna, the leaders of each group laid down pavement carrying their placards.
Sa giingonan namo nga puwasan na minaw sa mga advice sa mga military nga nasiyang palibot at the same time pod pagipadayon niya ang mga programa nga para namo kontra katawhan.
Nevertheless, they still believe that there is still a chance that President will fulfill what he promised during the election, which are now included in their appeal.
Tanaw pa naman ang kakulangan niya, no? Pero naapamantay mga nakita nga paglaom sa way sa mga saad. Sa 1 to 10, tagraduhan pa naman siguro sa exercise. No?
Several militant groups also walked the stretch of Session Road in Baguio City to show their disdain against the Duterte administration. The group comprised of Cordilleras People Alliance, transport groups, workers groups, women's groups, youth groups, Metro Baguio tribal leaders, Leaders Assembly, Anakbayan, and Kabataan Party List. They hold placards stating their protest against martial law and POJ phase-out, about the resumption of the peace talks, issue on education, workers' concern, among others. The group also staged a sketch depicting President Duterte, Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana, and other officials with their necks shackled by the chains being held by what symbolizes America. Joanano, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
The Philippine National Police and the Armed Forces of the Philippines have expressed huge gratitude to President Rodrigo Duterte during his first year in office. Leia Ilagan tells us why.
The PNP and the AFP say the president's support has been the reason why soldiers and cops have high morale, which result to the better performance of their duties.
From the bottom of my heart, thank you, Mr. President, for all the support that you have given the PNP. We cannot ask for more.
Both the police and military say their men have high morale due to the continued support being given to them by President Rodrigo Duterte. PNP Chief Police Director General Ronald Bato de la Rosa says cops are inspired to work harder as they know that the President will look after them.
Alam namin na mahal mo yung Philippine National Police. Talaga, maraming salamat. In behalf of my men in the field and who are fighting right now against the terrorists and the insurgents in the field and the criminal syndicates out there, they are fighting with very high motivation dahil nga alam nila na yung presidente ay nasa isip na palagi ng presidente.
The Armed Forces of the Philippines or AFP has also expressed gratitude to the president's support from the increase of their men's salaries and improvement in the military equipment under its modernization program. He says the executive's continued support to the AFP has a positive impact to Philippine troops.
Ito naman po ay nagbunga ng isang mataas na confidence rating or satisfaction rating buhat sa ating mga kababayan.
The police and military vow to give their full support to the president and to perform their duties well for the safety of the public against those seeking to sow violence. Leia Ilagan, UNTV News and Rescue, Camp Aguinaldo.
Motorists will experience moderate to heavy traffic once they approach the Batasan Road in Commonwealth Avenue. Monokson is at Commonwealth Avenue to tell us why live. Yes, Mon, go ahead.
Good evening, Darlene. Traffic flow in some parts of Commonwealth Avenue is now back to normal after the State of the Nation address of President Rodrigo Duterte, but motorists will experience a slight delay approaching Batasan area. Let us check the traffic situation. Motorists coming from Philcoa going westbound will experience moderate traffic in front of Philcoa, but light traffic in University Avenue, Magsaysay, and all the way up to Central Avenue and also in Tandangsora West Side. General Malvar Hospital is light traffic But approaching Batasan area, particularly in Zuzwaregi, motorists will experience moderate to heavy traffic up to Diliman Preparatory School, Evergotesco, and St. Peter's Church, and all the way to Batasan and Doña Carmen going Fairview. But motorists coming from Fairview area or those going westbound will experience light traffic in Batasan area. Light traffic also along St. Peter's Church and Evergotesco. Light traffic in Diliman Preparatory School, Zuzwaregi, and General Malvar Hospital. Slight delay, moderate traffic in Tandang Sora East Side and also on the other side. And light traffic Central Avenue and here in front of UP Techno Hub, Magsaysay Avenue, all the way to Philcoa and Elliptical Road. We remind all motorists that number coding will be implemented tomorrow starting from 7 a.m. up to 8 p.m. All motorists with plate numbers ending in 3 and 4 is prohibited in all major roads in Metro Manila. That is our traffic update. Back to you, Darnie.
Thank you, Monokson, reporting live from Commonwealth Avenue.
Next on Y News. Malacanang calls for unity towards peace and development after Congress approves martial law extension.
Earthquake victims in Ormoc City call for immediate relocation from government.
A low-pressure area is likely to develop into a tropical cyclone soon, according to Pag-asa.
Y News will be right back.
Let me just tell everybody that I have declared martial law for Mindanao.
Malacanang calls for unity towards peace and development following Congress approval of the extension of martial law. Leslie Longboan tells us why.
Malacanang has expressed gratitude to Congress for approving the martial law extension in Mindanao until December 31, 2017. Presidential spokesperson Ernesto Abella says the martial law extension is necessary to attain peace and order in Mindanao, especially that rebellion in Marawi City remains and the proliferation of terrorism and extremism must be stopped. Now that the debate is over as to the extension of martial law, Secretary Abella urges everyone to get on the job of nation building and contribute the attainment of the promised peace in Mindanao. He adds that there is much work to be done to ensure public safety and bring back law and order in the region, particularly in the recovery, reconstruction, and rehabilitation of Marawi City. Meanwhile, several lawmakers expressed concern over the possible abuse of power now that martial law was extended.
Hindi wala na pong oportunidad ang Kongreso na i-monitor ang martial law doon po sa Mindanao. At importante po yan sa ating sistema sa saligang batas na may check and balance. At yan po ay mangyayari kung limited ang period ng extension.
Ayaw nating maprolong na ma-expose ang ating sundalo dahil hindi natin maiwasan na magkaroon ng abuses.
Ay posibleng bahagi ng isang planong balang araw magdeklara ng batas militar sa buong bansa.
But for some senators, there is no reason for the public to worry over the extension of martial rule.
Ang maganda rito, nare-restrict na ang movement ng mga armed groups, yung mga may private army.
Iba na yung martial law na yun kasi binabanggit nila martial law nung araw. Yung martial law, with the advent pa naman of social media, any type of abuse, mare-report sa inyo kaagad, on time, real time.
Meanwhile, Albay Representative Edsel Lagman, Congressman Gary Alejano, Tom Villarin, and Teddy Bagilat are preparing to file a petition seeking the Supreme Court to question the decision to extend martial law in Mindanao.
Sa tingin ho namin na may paglabag din yung Kongreso doon sa kanyang pagdesisyon that it should go beyond 60 days. No?
There is no sufficient factual basis for the extension because what is happening now in Marawi is lawless violence amounting to terrorism, not actual rebellion.
Leslie Longboan, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
A legal counsel of National Democratic Front of the Philippines, or NDFP peace panel, says the peace talks between the government and the communist rebels can still be saved. Leslie Longboen is back to tell us why.
The National Democratic Front is not yet giving up on the peace talks with the government. A legal consultant for the NDFP's panel says they feel sad about the stalled negotiations. But it can still be saved if President Rodrigo Duterte would listen to both sides.
May pag-asa kung may himasmasan si Presidente, kung for a change, makinig naman sa taong bayan. Hindi lamang doon sa baluktot, mali-mali na bersyon ng mga pangyayari na kanyang natatanggap at agad-agad siya nagkaroon ng konklusyon.
He adds that as of the moment, it was clear the president has been listening to the militarists in his cabinet. An example is the shooting incident of a PSG convoy in Arakan, North Cotabato, which prompted the cancellation of the back-channel negotiations.
Ang layo nung nangyari doon sa pinaabot sa kanya eh. Ang unang bumaril ay yung mga army at ang sumugod doon sa checkpoint ay yung mga PSG. At hindi nga sila pinaputakan na eh at lumisan na lang eh.
Olalia says the president should realize more is at stake if the armed conflict will continue. But this doesn't mean negotiations should be terminated for good. For the first year, this is how they would rate Duterte.
Pabago-bago, pero walang pagbabago.
Leslie Longboen, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
President Rodrigo Duterte emphasized anew his lack of interest to visit the United States in his entire term of office. Mirasol Abogodil will tell us why.
Sabi ko, there will never be a time during my admission that I will be going to America or thereafter. Ako tapos na ako dyan. I've seen America and it's lousy. And they do not...
This was President Rodrigo Duterte's statement following a Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission hearing under the U.S. Congress on the implementation of the war on drugs in the Philippines and its effects on human rights protection. A lawmaker who led the hearing said President Duterte must not be received at the White House should he be invited by U.S. President Donald Trump. Several lawmakers in the U.S. Congress also pushed for a U.S. Senate counterpart bill to set restriction for America's aid to the Philippine National Police, support to the human rights defenders, and the pursuit of a public health approach on the country's problem on illegal drugs. But President Duterte says the human rights abuse in the U.S. must be investigated more than any country.
Explain to me why a hospital was bombed with all the technology and children and patients being killed before you start to investigate me. Otherwise, I will be forced to investigate you also.
President Duterte also has criticized the interference of the U.S. in the internal affairs in the country.
How about the sins that you committed against my country? Me, you're investigating me in the internal affairs of my country. I'm investigating you, and I will investigate you, and I will expose it to the world. What you did to the Filipino, especially to the Moro Filipino. I can do what you can do 10 times over.
Mirasol Abogodil, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
President Rodrigo Duterte orders the bombing of schools teaching rebellion to children. Rosalie Cos is at the Batasang Pambansa to tell us why live. Yes, Rosalie, good evening.
Good evening, Will. President Rodrigo Duterte said he clarifies that he is finally scrapping the peace talks with the Communist Party of the Philippines National Democratic Front. He said if the communist rebels are willing to fight for another 50 years, he is more than willing to do so. The president says he got mad after the New People's Army launched attacks against the government, especially the Presidential Security Group. The chief executive is also starting to call for mobilization to field in additional 30,000 to 40,000 force to the Philippine Army to strengthen and fight against the communist rebels. The government will also acquire high-altitude planes and drones to be used against the New People's Army. In line with this, he orders the Philippine Air Force to bomb schools used by the rebels to teach children rebellion. He appeals to the Lumads occupying the schools to move away from these structures.
Mga eskwelahan lang ng mga Lumad, yung kanila, they're operating without the Department of Education's permit. Kasi eskwelahan nila, but they are teaching subversion, communism, lahat na. So, umalis kayo dyan. Sabihin ko dyan sa mga Lumad ngayon, umalis kayo dyan. Bubombahan ko yan. Isali ko yung mga struktura ninyo. I will use the armed forces, the Philippine Air Force. Talagang bubombahan ko yung mga lahat ng ano ninyo. Because you're operating illegally and you are teaching the children to rebel against government.
He also enjoins the Commission on Human Rights and the Office of the Ombudsman, who will be investigating policemen and military men pursuing rebels, to direct their complaints first to him and the Department of the Interior and Local Government. He says the CHR and Ombudsman must first investigate the atrocities of the leftists before the policemen and soldiers.
The Ombudsman is to check on government. But if you fail to address also the atrocities of the other side so that you can get the truth and the whole story, then do not investigate my army and police. Tapos ang one-sided.
Will, he also hits Communist Party of the Philippines founding chair Jose Maria Sison, who he said has been abusing the Norwegian government, which has been spending for his medications. During his sauna this afternoon, President Duterte said Sison has been suffering from colon cancer. That is our latest live here from Batasang Pambansa. Back to you, Will.
Thank you, Rosalie Cos, reporting live from the House of Representatives. In other news, smokers seem unfazed by the implementation of the nationwide smoking ban yesterday. Joan Nano will tell us why.
The Executive Order Number 26 or the nationwide smoking ban, which prohibits the smoking in the public places, formally took effect yesterday. Yet the UNTV news team caught on video some Filipinos smoking in several areas in Quezon City, like this jeepney driver in Muñoz and this guy who just threw his cigarette on the street. Our team also caught someone smoking in front of the MRT station. A cigarette vendor says only few bought cigarettes in this day unlike before.
O siyempre, ang hina na. Wala na. O tignan mo, isang araw ba yan? Wala na. Malakas ang cigarette. Wala na. Kasi siyempre alam nila na smoking ban na ngayon.
Meanwhile, many Filipinos are glad with the implementation of the nationwide smoking ban, saying it would be good for the public's health.
Ayan ang dapat. Okay sa akin yun kasi hindi ako naninigarilyo. Ayun dapat talaga mawala.
The Department of Health meanwhile admits having difficulty in implementing the smoking ban nationwide. This is why it's calling for public's cooperation for its effective implementation. Joan Nano, UNTV News on Rescue, Philippines.
And the Department of Justice continues its efforts to dissolve illegal drugs trade inside the National Bilibid Prison. Aiko Miguel will tell us why.
The Department of Justice and the National Bureau of Investigation this morning presented to the media the mobile phones and bladed weapons that were confiscated inside the maximum security compound at the new Bilibid prisons last Friday. Although there were no drugs confiscated during the raid, the authorities have this to say about the status of drug trade inside the NBP.
We have not eliminated, and the President also recognized this, we have not yet eliminated drug trading in the Philippines. Drug trading in due course is a recognized fact. So we are trying to minimize and eliminate this up to today.
Co further reports that the DOJ, with the Bureau of Corrections and the National Bureau of Investigation, continues its operation that will dissolve the illegal drugs trade inside the Bilibid.
we will continue to implement courageously the mandate of the President to eliminate drugs, particularly in Bucor because of the so-called resurgence of drug trading in that area.
The confiscated mobile phones will be subjected to forensic autopsy for assured tracing of personalities involved in the said illegal activities.
Ito yung unang part ng operation early morning on July 21. Jointly carried out by the Bucor and the NBI. Confiscation of illegal weapons, and then yung cell phone. The cell phones will be submitted for forensic autopsy for us to know the extent of operation dun sa Bilibid.
In a related story, the NBI Task Force Against Illegal Drugs launched another operation the same day. This after receiving information from the Bucor of a large-scale drugs trading in the south area of Metro Manila. The group wasn't able to catch any persons involved in the transportation of the illegal drugs, but was able to take hold of an abandoned vehicle containing the illegal substances on a sidewalk in Ermita, Manila.
More than 10 kilos of dangerous drugs, estimated street value of about 60 million.
Based on the test conducted by the NBI Forensic Chemistry Division, the confiscated bags were positive of an illegal substance called dimethoxymethylphenethylamine. Meanwhile, the DOJ confirms that a new set of battalion of the Special Action Force were assigned at the maximum security compound at the NBP to assist the Bucor in maintaining security and in monitoring any illegal drugs operation inside the facility. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
Victims of the recent magnitude 6.5 earthquake that struck Ormoc City are calling for their immediate relocation to a safer area. Ray Pelayo tells us why.
About a week has passed since magnitude 6.5 earthquake struck Ormoc City, but many affected residents are still staying at temporary shelters until now, like in Barangay Cabawan-an, where the residents are staying at tents. Authorities say the shelters of the affected residents are no longer safe as they stand only on the ground with no foundation. Because of this, the earthquake victims are calling on the government to help them find a safer place to relocate. They say they are in a very difficult situation as their children are already getting sick while at the temporary shelters.
Halos kada adlaw diri magsigig ulan, so ang among mga tent diri gipang baha. Tapos unsafe para sa amo pati sa among mga anak nga dali lang magkasakit, and ang amo sang tubig dire, so according sa Department of Health, so positive siya sa E. coli. So we request also nga maka-provide usab unta ang local government og tubig.
Some parts of the Energy Development Corporation or EDC are still closed. This is aside from a mall that was recently engulfed by a fire. The mall workers call on the government to also provide them with livelihood and financial assistance.
Ang uban way trabaho man gud tungod sa linog, ang EDC wa papasudli, mostly sa kuan way trabaho gud.
They also called on the Department of Health to supply them with medicines for stomach ache, fever and diarrhea, as these are their common health concerns at the tent city. The Department of Social Welfare and Development, meanwhile, continuously supply the earthquake victims with food.
Moangyo sad mi nga unta matabangan kami nga magapadayon usab ang food assistance habang adya pa kami.
Earthquake-affected residents at the tent city in Ormoc are hoping that the President would act at once on their request for immediate relocation so they could gradually go back to their normal lives. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Laguna residents grabbed the opportunity to watch the movie written and starred in by Mr. Public Service Kuya Daniel Razon. Di isang araw, ikatlong yugto. Robbie Di Guzman tells us why.
More than 3,000 kasangbahays bustled to Alonte Arena in Binyan, Laguna last Saturday to watch Kuya Daniel's advocacy film. Most of the viewers could not help but be emotional due to the dramatic scenes in the movie and also laughed because of the funny scenes of Bayani and Paking. just like Jerome of San Pedro, Laguna, who, despite watching the movie several times, still continues to watch and support it.
Masasabi kong best movie ever sa buong mundo na para po sa akin. Dito po kasi complete package eh. Kumbaga sa kape, 3-in-1 eh. Comedy, action, at higit sa lahat yung moral lesson na napakaganda.
Love and forgiveness were the most significant things in the movie that marked in the minds of our kasangbahays.
Hindi po pwedeng hindi ka magpatawad kung papalitan mo pa ng mas masama, lalong hindi mas maganda. Kailangan talaga laging Panginoon Diyos yung ating uunahin.
Huwag pong manghusga agad sa kapwa po. Tapos ano po, yung sumunod po sa magulang, matuto po magpatawad.
Magandang paggaganap sa ni Kuya. Magandang aral ang binigay niya.
Kuya Daniel's fans expect that the movie with lessons to be learned in this generation will have its next sequel as soon as possible. The movie Isang Araw has been viewed not only across the Philippines but also overseas. Robbie de Guzman, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
From Manila, the UNTV News team traveled all the way to Nueva Ecija, the largest province of Central Luzon. Leslie Longbowen tells us why. Novo Ecijanos showcased their singing talent during the Wishcovery audition in Cabanatuan City. On the way there, you can already see its vast rice fields, making it known as the Rice Bowl of the Philippines. But our trip to its most populous city proved us that the province does not only produce large amounts of the country's staple food, but also many good talents. After almost 4 hours of travel, finally we are here at the on-ground audition of Wish 1075 in Cabanatuan City. And as you can see, the venue is filled with auditionees aiming to be wish-covered. Among those who auditioned was Diadem Garengo, who is a government employee.
Gusto ko kasi po matagal akong nahinto talaga sa magkanta dahil nag-focus ako sa trabaho. Parang gusto kong, sige, try natin ulit ngayon, pero sa bigger competition naman.
21-year-old Jason Villena also gave his best in his performance of This Is the Moment.
When I look back, I will always recall moment for moment. This was the moment, the greatest moment.
The moment, Carpe Diem. Since the day, sabi kong gano'n. So, kailangan kong ibigay yung talagang best ko para makuha talaga ako.
Singing is very important to Jason because this was instrumental to achieving his dream to finish his studies.
Scholar ako sa CLSU, the CLSU Singers. Nakuha na ako ng full scholarship, ayun, tapos nakapag-aral ako.
Aspiring singers of Nueva Ecija thanked Wish 1075 for bringing the audition to their place.
Natutuwa po ako na syempre may ganito na pumupunta-punta sa bawat sulok ng Pilipinas kasi hindi naman po lahat talaga kayang pumunta ng Manila, makapag-audition, maipakita yung talent nila.
The winner of Wishcovery will receive 2 million pesos worth of cash and contract, house and lot, and brand new car. Leslie Longbowen, UNTV News and Rescue, Cabanatuan City.
Those are the reasons behind the news, July 24, 2017. I am Angelo Castro III.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I am William Theo.
And I'm Darlene Basingan, because we need to know.
We will always ask why. Thank you for watching
Why News.